Thank you for having me again. I was just here with the Dora Factory DAO presentation, where I was really mainly focused on the DAO now to finally talk about Harmony. So I am one of the Harmony developer captains. I've been working closely with Harmony for about 3 months now. I know the protocol very well, and I also know what it means to be interoperable with the projects that go into Harmony's blockchain. But do I know how to code it? Not exactly. Actually, for a lot of the developers, it's a challenge to try to get everything working, but we are actually developing very quickly, and applications can exist in Harmony seamlessly. And everyone has the right prediction as far as, is it going to be feasible? Is it going to be good? Is it going to be worth putting your application to Harmony? Like, there's a lot of good reasons not to just ignore it, right? And I would say, like, number one, it's the fees. The fees are extremely low, and it's also extremely fast. So I wanted to take a lot of that design and the architecture of how Harmony built their entire protocol and try to put something on it that was not just a DEX. It wasn't, a lot of these projects that we see nowadays. I really wanted to try to bring something that was going to be innovative, that brought a lot of my own passions. I am a Python instructor. I also teach JavaScript and C++ and Java to personal clients and privately in private practice. And mainly in my day-to-day job, I'm a technician. So the biggest thing and the biggest hurdle for me is getting certified in things, because I'm always looking for another job, and I'm always trying to pay somebody $1,000 just to go get some kind of certification that I don't have the money for. Or, right, if I want to go get a job and there's these gateway barriers of the HR around the world, and I have to go have some crazy degree that I maybe do or do not need. And it's a little up in the air. And after talking to a lot of developers in this space, degrees are great for some things, and you don't necessarily need them for a lot of things, especially when it comes to project focus. If I'm building a project and if I just have a way to build it, I'm good. So that's to kind of summarize what Alexandria will be doing. So what is Alexandria? It's nothing more than a decentralized smart contracting chain, that this chain will essentially be servers that are written similarly to how Harmony has built their entire architecture in Golang. Instead of a blockchain, it will essentially be a server chain, and these servers will be making separate API calls, or otherwise known as REST API calls, to each other. And some might know this as microservices. So what is a microservice? Okay, essentially, we have to make calls to other servers to bring in portions of our applications. A lot of people are building their web applications and their dApps strictly in Web 2, and then they have a Web 3 layer on top of it, which is known as Solidity Smart Contract Code. And you're making separate API calls to Web 3 in the DOM that it exists inside of. And within that DOM, it's making calls to the blockchain, which is through web3.ethers or web3.js. And it's this entire other process. But the point is that people are essentially making Web 2 sites, and they're layering it over Web 3 implementation. And it's kind of making this crossbreed of the internet, right? And that's where we see a lot of our web applications, and they're coming out of this space of web application developers and web developers, and they're making these projects that are amazing. Like, it takes a lot of brain to do this. It's not easy in any way. So I try to take it one step further. Okay, how then can I have some sort of file sharing application that has no Web 2 interface whatsoever? Is that a possibility? So I went down this rabbit hole, and I did discover that there is a lot of roadblocks, and there's not a whole lot of support for it, but I'm getting close. So the idea is infrastructurally, I don't have like a demo. I'm just going to be talking straightforward about this for like 2 more minutes and I'll show you what I got. So essentially, if you can imagine micro servers, and these micro servers, and if you can imagine a blockchain, if anyone knows what the architecture of a blockchain is that each block has the hash of the last block, right? So no different than how servers can actually communicate to one another. You can actually make concurrent calls with Golang. And Golang actually has this concurrency pattern within it, where as long as it's running on a certain chain, which could be IPFS, which could be this file sharing system, and as long as it's being shared, it's making calls to itself. But these calls are just servers talking to each other. So it's a bunch of servers talking to each other. That's the short way of saying that. Since these servers are talking to each other, what they're really doing is that they're sending different calls to one application. And this one application exists on the internet. And I can go and contact this DOM. I can go to this piece of the internet called Web3. And then anytime I click a button, anytime I do something, it's making a separate call to a separate server. And this is essentially the idea of microservices, where when I click one thing, it's going to one server, but a completely different action on the same site will make a different call to a different server. Okay, so I'm trying to explain microservices in the bubble, and it's really hard, but okay, so that's kind of the idea, right? So mini servers talking to each other, so that's one layer, and then a website that has calls to all those different servers. Contract chain, that is the idea. So a contract chain, what is it displaying? Okay, so this is what it's going to be. I swear I'm going to finally show you something. Okay, so the biggest problem in education is that it's too expensive. Here's my slide. The next biggest problem is that there's certifications that are way too expensive and they're not globally accepted, and we need universal credits. Okay, Elon Musk kind of said you don't even need college, but I'm going to say that that's not entirely true. But there are a lot of things that's true about that notion. A lot of people are then out of reach zones. So like biggest areas, Russia, Africa, most of South America, a lot of places just do not have the right and the same access to the internet as we do. So we need a piece or a portion of the internet that is not going to live on some central server system somewhere where it's sending information to certain areas of the world. We have to have something where as long as you can access the internet through any kind of DOM, you can then make a different call, what I'm saying, to a file sharing system that is decentralized and is in your area, and it will be brought to you. And if it's brought to you, you can download it. So instead of making a bunch of servers and a bunch of gigantic things, like a bunch of Googles all over the place, we need to have something where we already have the internet file sharing system, this gigantic decentralized file sharing protocol that could open the doors for so many things. So I'm trying to do this with education. So if you make a call to this application that I'm going to show you right now, it's going to bring you certain pieces of information. So in other words, decentralized public education. Okay. So I'm not going to go over these. I went over this in the last thing. This was the DAO that we have. We're going to have a DAO. We have our own token that's going to be built on Harmony. Okay. So the DAO is going to be this thing that's going to be different governors, cycling the amount of education that's in the project. That's an entire plan. I already explained that in the last hackathon. And then the Anna token is going to be built on Harmony. So this is how we're going to utilize Harmony for its frictionlessness, its ability to transact fees really quickly. The whole thing will be deployed onto Harmony, where we're going to be releasing the smart contracts with the configuration pointed at the Harmony blockchain. Okay. And of course, it's all going to be built with Solidity, because I should just say this for everybody. Like, The Harmony blockchain is interoperable with the EVM. So the Ethereum virtual machine is literally embedded, machine code and everything inside of their protocol. So any Solidity contract you like develop, you could take it and you can put it into Harmony and it will work just as fast. Well, not just as fast, like 1,000 times faster and a lot more cheaper. So I think it's worth it. Like in every way, it's worth it. Okay, so that's like the thing with Harmony. But the application, so this is what I'm talking about. So it's going to be a front end interface where you come, it's going to look very similar to like some kind of Web 2 apparatus. And you're going to enter the classroom. And when you do, you're going to be brought to a site that is going to look very reminiscent to what you would say is like Udemy, Coursera, other online education platforms. But the unique thing is that like I did from this slide to this slide, can you see that transition? I'm not sure if everyone can see that transition. Sometimes Zoom doesn't record the whole thing. Can you see that transition if I go from this to this?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So from this is making a different REST API call to a different server on IPFS than this. Okay, so that's microservices in a bubble. So this is how you can put an entire application on IPFS, but still make the same calls to the same application. So, right, how are these two connected? Okay, they're connected through a contract chain. So all of these essentially from this slide to this slide, those servers are connected to one another and they're running concurrently together. So when I press enter class, it's going to go into this application and it's going to also switch the server to this application's space. It's essentially, it's another space. It's another server that's displaying a different portion of the same application. The servers are essentially the single layer of the application of Alexandria itself, except that they all hold different portions of the same application. So I hope I drove that home because that is the tech stack of how this project is going to work literally. Do I have that built yet? No, but like I am working on it. But this is going to be an example of what it's going to look like. So it's going to be something very, again, reminiscent of something that you've probably seen of online. If you wanted to get a practical guide of Git, if you wanted to know everything about blockchain, if you wanted to learn data structures, right? If you wanted to get certified publicly in something, there is somebody out there where do they exist? The last month I've been working on this, we've created our own DAO of educators and bridge builders, we call them, the Bridge Builders DAO. These bridge builders, they all make different projects, but what they all do is that they all document their process and then we document it and then shove it inside of essentially an NFT / education portal. So I can choose classes, much like I can choose classes anywhere, but I can choose guides and learn and then get a project done. And then the next idea is that we partner with HackerLink so that if people go to Alexandria, there will be another section, which is essentially the section down here, where if you do a project, you can then submit it to HackerLink. Okay, so how does this all work with decentralized education? Okay, we have Bridge Builders DAO creating the content of the projects that they work on. That's a 35+ member organization that we've built over the past month. I'm going to show you some of those things eventually, but we built a large team of validators, full stack developers, educators, marketers, everybody you can think of. And the one rule of the DAO is that you essentially document your process so that once we document it, we can then turn it into a lesson plan and then decentralize your project to the world. And then the world can then choose a project from this project filter. They can see what NFT they're going to get once they do the project. And if they like it, they can do all sorts of things. They're going to get a return on their investment. So if I learn, I'm going to earn. And the Anna token, which is the token that we're going to build in Harmony. If I choose a project and I go throughout the entire session and I click submit, right? I'm going to get back 20% of my Anna tokens into my wallet that I originally paid for. So it's this learn to earn model, giving the incentive to actually put in your time and your effort to learn something, and you're going to get something back in return. You're also going to get a unique NFT, in which the lesson creator created for you. Okay, and then there's going to be certified courses, this is the hypothetical idea that the DAO, which is the Alexander DAO, which I didn't show you, but this was what I was talking about last session. Essentially what they do is they're going to bring on real educators, like professionals in their field, and make entire courses that we can then put publicly on chain. So, right, like public certifications that people can get at a really, really low rate. Instead of $1,000 certification, instead of spending 40 grand at school, you can just do something where the professional goes straight to their audience. So that's the whole idea with Web3 and with cryptocurrencies in general, is that it's like me shoving my hand through the screen, and then you're getting my money, right? If you've ever seen that meme with Fry from Futurama, it's like, take my money. That is like my imagination of how cryptocurrency works. So it should be no different than education, should be no different than how a lot of applications can be built nowadays. Okay, so that's this. And then this little section that I have not worked out yet with you guys with HackerLink. Yes, I would like to partner with HackerLink so that bridge builders can build projects, they can learn it, send it to Alexandria, and then those final assessments can then be attested by HackerLink. So that would be a really cool kind of interweaving of the real world with different sponsors involved, with learning, building, and then sponsoring the project through different blockchains and different protocols like what you guys do in your organization, which would be really cool. Yeah, so this is essentially the culture of the NFTs, is that you learn to earn them. And this is the Andrea token that we have available. Everything is working through Discord and Twitter and Telegram. That's how we're actually organizing the bridge builders right now. Again, it's about 35 people. And yeah, and it's going to be a DAO. All of this is going to be ran by various DAOs, which I've already kind of made plans for, which again, I want to talk with Eric about so that we can understand kind of like the rules of what these organizations are going to look like. This is kind of like how do you get your project posted onto Alexandria? It's going to be much like a voting platform where I get to choose the things that I want to learn decentrally. Okay, so the server, again, this is another API, right? This is another thing on the same site. And I get to go here, and then I get to make different votes. And these votes then get sent to IPFS, and then it's getting sent. And then it's, telling the whole server network, like, okay, they made a vote, right, on this portion of the application. Remember that. Explaining code and trying to explain, servers and an application all at the same time in 20 minutes is not easy. So I hope everything I'm saying makes some sense. It's a big project, and I'm not going to lie, it's hard. So this is another portion in which a portion of my team is developing. This is actually what the front end looks like right now. But this is our internal exchange. So we don't want people to just be going anywhere, right? Like going to Binance and like funneling out and liquidating Anna tokens just to go sell it anywhere. And essentially, like we want to make sure that like learners are not going to be abused for learning and earning. So that's why it's like you can actually only exchange for Anna tokens on this platform. But it's a Harmony's, it's through the Harmony blockchain. So it's going to be through Ethereum, like through their Horizon bridge, which is the thing that allows you to, transact Bitcoin and Chainlink and Ethereum into Harmony tokens. I'm not sure if everyone's aware of that, but they do have a Horizon bridge already made. And they're going to be doing the same thing with Cosmos. They're going to be doing the same thing with multiple bridges. It's going to be insane. So Harmony's whole thing is that they're a cross-chain financial system that will essentially bridge all blockchains together through having their own collateral called the one token. So yes, like you can use this one token through this and get Anna, and Anna is specifically designed to be a voting token through the Alexandria project, right? Which is this public education protocol. Okay, so that's that. And this is some of the stuff we've done the last 2 weeks. So this is actually, we have a live event. So as I said, like, okay, I wanted to put it to the test. If I'm going to be teaching people in the world, right? And I already have lesson plans for Solidity, for everything Ethereum, for everything Harmony, and for creating your own cryptocurrency. I said, hey, bridge builders. So somebody from the bridge builders, okay? This is the cool thing about how the bridge builders is going to work. I don't have a team, but I can go to the bridge builders and I can get a team, okay? And then somebody came to me, they're like, hey, I'll help you create an event at such and such place because I have event creation experience. And I said, that's awesome. Okay, well, I have a lesson plan that I've been building through this decentralized protocol of decentralized education. Can you help me? And they're like, yeah, sure. So what did we do? We went to the Atlas Cafe and they're like, yeah, we're down to have the crypto cafe, you know? Okay, that's a thing now. So now at 5 to 6:30, we're going to be holding live public events. And that's going to be kind of that is the unpredictable route with how this entire project is going to be going. It's are we going to be doing live events also on top of Alexandria? You know, are all the lesson plans that come out of bridge builders are also going to be sponsored live, right? Like they're going to have live presentations of the protocols, like mentoring, and you can also learn it, right? It's interesting in the direction that it's going to be going in. But yeah, live public education from a decentralized protocol of decentralized people who have already come together to create decentralized lesson plans are now being hosted and publicly taught somewhere, right? And the first place is going to be the Atlas Cafe. So we said, okay, that's pretty awesome. What are we going to do for it? We need 1,000 subscribers. So this link right here, this is the 3001 giveaway. I am giving away 3,000 of my own one tokens, just to have 1,000 people subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Bridge Builders DAO. We got 58 entries so far in the past 3 days, which is pretty great. No one knew anything about it 3 days ago, and yet 60 people still decided to do it, which is awesome. So we have a lot of support from the community, which is really cool. What was I going to say? Oh yeah. It's exciting. You know, it's exciting. If we get to 1,000 people, then that means we can hold live streams, and that those will be decentralized live streams in a single area. So to wrap it all up, the bridge builders are creating teams of developers where that was a problem. It's a problem to find teams. And we found one problem where, you know, certain developers couldn't hook up with certain other developers and just decide on a project. So the bridge builders is focusing on projects that you want to build and then pairing you up with the right person, which already worked for me somehow. And I'm the creator of it. So it's weird that it already worked. So that happened. And then, right, we got Alexandria, where it's, well, take your project and then document it and then throw it onto a decentralized public chain protocol where other people can take that and do a project and then build the project and submit it to HackerLink so that you have some kind of final say. So you built your team, you learned the project, you built the project, and then you submitted it publicly live for maybe a grant, right? Or maybe a hiring opportunity. Who knows? But that's the whole thing with school. You never know. You don't even know what you're putting your money into. So you might as well make it as like frictionless as possible. I think that's it. I mean, unless you want to see what the public, like the other protocol, I mean, we got other things. We got things to share for days. These are the other two projects that are in the bridge builders right now. We got Easy Node. This guy, he came to the bridge builders and he wants to build an entire, like he actually built this entire thing out of Python. It's awesome. It's, I've been working with him closely on building the front end actually of this. So we're two bridge builders helping build this one project. And this is a Harmony project. This is to get validators into the network faster. So it's already a pain in the butt to like become a validator on the one network. So this guy is like, hey, I got an idea for building a validator, like an easy validator setup. And I'm like, that's dope. So let me help you. And that's like, that was the beauty of the bridge builders coming together. And now he's like got this entire thing done. And I've been working with him for weeks now, and it's killer. And it's going to be a one project. And then we got Elixir of Life. She's new, and she wants to bring juices to the blockchain. She wants to bring herbs, right? She wants to do some awesome things with nutrients. And I don't know what her plan is, but she wants to involve the Harmony blockchain. So where do we find her? The bridge builders. How? I don't know, but she wants to build a website where it's got one tokens involved. And I'm like, that's awesome. So this is, if you can see the value in which it's like, we get the team, we can teach you decentrally, and then we can get your projects to real centers like HackerLink and so on. That is decentralized education in my mind and how it would work. And this is Project Alexandria in a nutshell. I'm right now working on the Golang server feed. So like I'm building a bunch of Golang servers on IPFS. That is like step number one. Step number two is building out the entire application front and back end in JavaScript and Golang, specifically Golang, just because I can make different concurrent API calls between the separate microservices on the IPFS, which is essentially a decentralized server system. How do we do it? That's a good question, but I mean, I'm getting a lot of progress, and now I know the direction in which we're going to go in. See, 2 weeks ago, we had no idea, but now we're like, oh, we got something and it works, but now we just got to put it out there. So that's what we're building. Thank you so much for listening to me. I know that probably seemed really disorganized, but that's the way I roll, I guess. So thank you so much for having me again. I appreciate you guys. And if you wanted to, I'll say this, if you wanted to enter to win 3001 tokens, I'll put this into the chat and you can share it wherever. Thank you so much, and 1,000 subs. Thank you.
Thank you. This is really cool. And we actually have a bunch of questions in the chat. So the first set of questions is, how can you go without Web 2 features, and what features of Harmony do you think are the best?
Okay, so how to go without Web 2 features. Okay, so Web 2 is essentially a way where you can present information, and you can use like plugins and gateways and different kinds of portals, but you're essentially, all the Web 2 is coming from is like, it's coming from a server somewhere, or it's coming from the cloud, which is essentially what like these decentralized things are. It's a cloud of information, or it's a cloud of servers, and that's where you're pulling the information from. So you kind of right now, like in the moment, you can't completely escape the Web 2 apparatus itself. But people do have this idea that like Web 2 versus Web 3, like Web 3 is like this alien form of the internet, and it's not. It's very similar, except it's how it's utilized. So Web 2 in my brain, and this is how it works with me, is that it's coming from a central it's coming from a central feed. And when you break away from a central feed, you're essentially going into this realm of cloud feed. And even still, cloud and the apparatus of how cloud infrastructure works is in a sense centralized, because like, for example, like AWS, which is Amazon Web Services, right? They do their whole thing with cloud infrastructure, and they develop applications through the cloud. Google does the same thing. Again, though, this is what I was trying to say before with the whole, Web 2 is in a lot of ways centralized no matter what. Like if you go to like anywhere in Africa, you try to access the same internet like Google, and it will not be the same, and it will have limited information. And that's because it's making different calls to different servers, and it's trying to get somewhere, anywhere, to pull the information that you want, but it's not readily available. So the thing that has no bias for what you're exactly pulling from is some kind of decentralized feed that has no one specific server, nor is it owned by anybody. And that's essentially what the interplanetary file sharing system is that anyone can access this giant server of the cloud, and you can pull information, but whether or not you're pulling the information to make it like a Web2 website, well, that's completely predetermined with what you're providing to begin with. See, this is where I'm like, you have to build a server inside of the decentralized server. That's essentially what a node is doing when it's deploying a decentralized application to begin with. Okay, this is hard to explain because like I have an entire lesson plan that I'm going to be going over of how this all works. But like node and node providers, nodes can essentially house a dApp, and these dApps can be housed onto a central node or to like multiple nodes. And if you want to make your own dApp, it's sometimes recommended that you have your own node that's connected to the network, like your own miner, for example, or your own validator for the Harmony network, that you have something like that so you can make your own private calls to your network, so that you're not, sending out, or essentially you're sending out your private key to the whole world. It's highly recommended that you create your own, essentially your own node. So what I'm saying is that you create your own server on the IPFS, and then you're putting your dApp on that server, and then that dApp is split up into multiple pieces like a microservice. The infrastructure is weird, and I wish I could draw it out for you to see how it all works. The second question is, Harmony is great because it works with EVM. Like I said, it's EVM compatible, and anything that I write in Solidity will work on Harmony. The fees are less than 1,000th of a cent in US dollars. So that means any transaction that I do, whether it be an NFT, whether it be a normal transaction, or just a call, right, to the application that I'm using, like a dApp. Well, to use that dApp, usually it costs, like on Uniswap, if I want to make a single transaction for $6,000, right, it's going to cost me like, I think $200 just to make a transaction settle. I think that's insane. Nothing against the Uniswap Foundation. Again, I think everything built is amazing because it's open source. It's open source, right? It's an open source web application. It has no bias. It has no barrier. Anyone around the world can access it, no matter where you are. But make it cheaper, like people don't have all the money in the world. There's a lot of disenfranchised people out there. That's the one thing that the industry needs to kind of essentially attest to, which I know Crypto Bank, which is a part of this hackathon, is doing. I believe they're a protocol that is a banking system, but it's going to run on Harmony in Africa, specifically in Africa. So that's a great project, right? We got to bring these abilities to the people who don't have the same access as we do in other areas of the world. So that's something that I think is very necessary for mass adoption, especially in blockchain. Blockchain is all about userability. If you want to get users to use the protocol, well, you got to make it like accessible in some way. So that's including the fees, and that's including what blockchain you're using. And Harmony happens to be one of the winners in my book for what it's done. And it's built to last too. It can already handle tens and thousands of transactions a second. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've been using it for over a year now. It works. It works really well. Yeah. Any other questions? I knew there was other questions, but
Yes. Another question regarding the decentralized education is like, is there actually educator or people will be totally self-taught?
Right. So that was the bubble that we were running into with the Harmony. I mean, sorry, the DAO that we were doing with the Bridge Builders projects is now we're doing live mentoring sessions based off of what the Bridge Builders create, and then those creations go to Alexandria. People then learn from those projects, and then they can build their own project based off of those projects that people have already built, but they can make it their own, and they can submit it to a hacker link or to another organization. Um, so um, will there be mentors for these projects? Like right now, the bridge builders, everyone is a mentor. Like if I don't know, if I don't know how to code a smart contract, then I'll go to the guy who does, that's in bridge builders, and then they can mentor me. And the benefit of the bridge builders working together is that, well, their whole protocol is based around submitting their lessons, which are being essentially governed by a board of directors and a board of approvers. So the board of directors are certifying the content, and the board of approvers are the people who are approving the outside world of that content. Um, I explain how the DAO works in the last hackathon. I would be going on for like another 10-15 minutes explaining how like the infrastructure of how the DAO works. But to put it super short and sweet, there is a DAO that is certifying and regulating the behavior of users on Alexandria. So there are people certifying real professional content and putting it out to the world. And then there are users going to that content. And then there's a separate body called the Board of Approvers certifying those users for that content. So much like how when you go to Binance.us, you had to go for a verification process. It's going to be the same thing where you come to the DAO, you learn the lesson, you send in your final assessment. But then there's a board that's actually going to be like saying, oh, well, did they do the work? Did they complete a project? Is it unique, right? There's going to be certain criterias for every project that's going to be coming into Alexandria. And so far, like I said, there's a couple. There's decentralized, like everything when it comes to creating a blockchain, creating a cryptocurrency, multiple Solidity contract chains. I'm making a lesson plan for Golang, since that's literally what I'm doing. Everything that the bridge builders does, we document. So as I'm building Alexandria, I'm also creating a lesson plan for how to build it. That's to try to answer your question in a semi in an unobvious way. Everything we build, we are also documenting, and we are also going to try to teach. And hopefully that enlightens a professor from somewhere who wants to do something and maybe teach CS or maybe teach history. I don't know. But like create a lesson plan and then put it out to the world where they can then pay themselves for the things that they do, like that they teach, but it's certified. And there was a huge audience who voted that person in to take those lessons, which was what that voting board is, what I was showing you. So you as the learner get to choose your semesters, like much like how choosing a class for the public education protocol, you as the audience are voting in as what is Alexandria going to provide to the world every semester. There's going to be a couple of classes that are certified, and then there's going to be a handful of ones that are not certified, that are just like what Bridge Builders does, like give you a project, or there's going to be certified content that's actually coming from the things that you voted for. So the Alexander DAO is essentially you're voting in projects that you want to learn. You get the credits that you want, universal credits, and then you're learning to earn those projects once they come out. And then you can build a project based off of what you learn, whether it be from the bridge builders or whether it be from the Alexander DAO, which are certifying content to you. And then you can go to HackerLink and then build your project. And you can go back to Bridge Builders DAO and go get a teammate if you want, and then go right back. It's going to be this like trifecta situation of business network meets education meets decentralization, meeting lesson plans and building those lesson plans with others. Right. That's essentially the idea.
Well, thank you so much. That's really cool. Yeah, and in the interest of time, we would have to move on to Digital Verse, our third project. But thank you, Dylan, again for sharing everything.